Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
We'll just give folks a few minutes to log in before we get started.
I have all my homework done, Robin.
Never doubted you would, Mary. Never doubted it.
Anybody else in the waiting room, Les?
No, that's it.
No?
I think
Okay.
we have 9 people here.
Yeah. So I know Rob and Ron won't be here. Was Tessie in meetings today?
Yeah, she was. She
Yes,
was
okay.
earlier.
Okay, so we're just waiting on Tessie and Steph. I'll give them just a couple more minutes if you folks don't mind.
Okay. Okay, Steph is here.
All right, hi Steph. Just gonna give Tessie another minute and then we'll get started. Okay, well, hopefully Tessie can join us. Let's just go ahead and get started. It's 1:33 p.m. on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. Thank you everybody for joining. We do have quorum. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do introductions. I think it'll be a little bit quicker that way. I'm Winona Thone, Chair of the Council. We have Mary Berger, Vice Chair, and the following members: Roy Abe, Robin Kay, Keith Kawaoka, Maka'ala Ka'amoana, Mahina Tudor, Michael Tulang, Stephanie Dunbar-Cole, and Don Heger Nordblom. So we are just missing, I think, Tessie right now. Ron said he wasn't going to be able to join today.
No, she's here.
Oh, she's here now? Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so Tessie's here. We're just missing Ron and Rob.
Mhm.
And I think Kathy Ho said she was going to be a little late. And I do see we just had one member of the public join. If you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, Pane Mantoga, Operating Engineers Industry Stabilization Fund.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Pane. All right, so we're just getting started. As we said, we do have quorum. Next up on our agenda, review and approval of meeting minutes. I don't think we have meeting minutes yet.
No, not this time.
Okay, we're working on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hand it over to Keith. You can go ahead and give the OEQC director's report.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. As you're well aware, we have started the legislative session. We just got a slew of bills. Just to give you an indication, Department of Health typically gets about 2,000 to 2,500 bills We have reviewed the bills that we've gotten so far for Environmental Council or the Office of Environmental Council. I'm not going to go through each one. I think Robin can kind of go through them, or he was planning to do that. But there's a lot of bills that we've talked about in the past meetings, so it's not necessarily a surprise. There's also bills that came up in previous sessions. So there's probably about 12 to 13 bills. A lot of them are companion bills. So if you take that into account, we're probably in the neighborhood of about 7 or 8 bills that we're dealing with. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Keith. Does anybody have questions for the director? Okay, looks like nothing right now, but I'm sure things might come up. So thank you, Keith, for that update. All right, so next up we had the exemption committee update. We did not have an exemption committee meeting this month. So we're gonna go ahead and defer that item and we'll be able to give an update on that next month. So Steph, I'll go ahead and turn it to you for the annual report committee update.
Thanks, Onana, and aloha, everyone. The annual report committee did meet this morning, and we reviewed feedback that some of you shared. Thank you very much for reviewing the annual report and getting your comments back so quickly. Feedback from the council was very supportive. There was no request for changes. And so we moved out of committee to approve and finalize the 2020 annual report. And we recommend to the full council to, again, approve the 2020 annual report for distribution. I don't believe we need a second right now because this came out of committee and was a recommendation out of committee. But prior to opening it up for discussion, I did want to share that in committee, we asked to approve the annual report as is with the amendment of adding the OEQC letterhead and Onauna's signature to the cover letter that precedes the survey itself and findings. And so that's the motion out of committee. And I'm happy to open it up for discussion right now.
Thanks, Steph. Just one point of clarification. You said OEQC's letterhead, you mean the council's letterhead, correct?
Correct. Forgive me. Yes. The council's letterhead and your signature to formalize that cover letter. Additionally, we discussed that the email, because of course this is going to be distributed to a variety of folks, OEQC will take the helm of distributing to legislators as well as the 49 survey participants. And then Lauren Kim, who's a lead planner in OPPD with DOH and is typically responsible for distributing annual reports from within that department. Les has kindly been working with him, or her rather, forgive me, to him, thanks,
Yeah. Okay.
to distribute our annual report to that listserv as well. And the email that will accompany that we envision as being very simple, given that the cover letter sort of says it all about the annual report.
Thanks, Steph. Any other discussion on the annual report before we go ahead and call the vote? All right. All those in favor of distributing the annual report as attached to the agenda with the amendments that Steph enumerated, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any opposed? Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, so I'll note that the vote was 9-0-0. Looks like we lost Mahina for that vote.
Thank you, everyone. And a big thanks to Robin again for working with the contractor to do the survey.
Yes, thank you, Robin. And I'll go ahead and send out a thank you card on behalf of the council to them if you folks are okay with that. I know it's hard to get everybody to sign, so I'll just sign it from all of us. All
Thank
right.
you. I think we also talked about less in the email that gets sent to the participants of the survey, just some quick, simple language around thanking them for participating.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
And so is that language going to come from the annual report committee? Or am I drafting that, or what's happening? Les drafting it?
It's really, I mean, it's going to be very simple, right? The cover letter's in there. So this is, I envision the email itself just introducing that this is the annual report, and for the emails that go to those 49 participants, thanking them for being a part of it.
Okay.
I'm happy to entertain anything else, but I don't think we need to make the email itself complicated.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I just wanted to know who's drafting it, because I don't, we'll have to draft it for Les basically and provide him the language. So I just want to make sure we have that action item going out.
I would
Roy,
ask,
you want to do that?
my thought would be, Steph, since you've been the acting chair, you ought to put that language together. You just expressed exactly what it would be. I don't think it would take you very long. You're the most knowledgeable about it. The only question I have on the distribution was what, and Les, this is probably to you. When it goes out to the 49 participants and others, will it go out as a BCC? Because we promise confidentiality to the
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Okay.
It'll go out as a BCC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, Steph, if you don't mind just even writing bullet points to me, at least I can take a look at the language and craft it and send it to Les for the email distribution.
Okay, happy to do that.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else from annual report committee?
Not unless Roy or Tessie want to share anything.
I'm fine. That was good.
Yeah, thank you folks so much for working on this. And Robin, even though you weren't on the committee, I echo, Stephanie's sentiments, and we appreciate you folks putting this together. I know it's a great effort every year. So glad that we're able to do it, and only, a few days late this time. So we're doing good. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Robin now for the legislative committee update.
Okay, thank you. We had a really good meeting, good participation from all. First thing I want to point out is that the link that Les included with the legislative committee update, there are 4 other bills that I'd like you to add to that list that we are watching. They came up a little bit after I was able to put that list to Les, and so I couldn't send it out to you. I was concerned about screwing up our requirement for sunshine. So add these 4 to your list of those we're tracking: HB 901, HB 1318.
Roy, you actually have HB 901 on the list. I wanted to,
I do?
yeah,
You said Roy, you mean Robin.
Rob, I'm sorry, Robin.
That's all right. It's all with an R.
You guys are all in a row.
I do have 901. Sorry, you're right. Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
So
3 bills.
HB 1318, HB 1350, and SB 1055. Oops.
SB 1055 is the companion bill to HB 901.
Okay. woman never misses a trick. Just amazing.
You gave me a homework assignment and I did it. It's not a trick, it's just
Okay.
obedience.
Yeah. Okay, so so that list is updated, and we'll talk about them as Keith suggested we will in just a minute. But we also had a couple of motions. Mary moved and Mahina seconded a recommendation that the EC chair submit testimony in support of Senate Bill 351. And that's the bill, that's one of the bills we should talk about today. That's the bill that resulted from, that Senator Gabbard put together on behalf of the council's request to change 3 things about what we do. You remember what was the topic of discussion at the last meeting? We approved it. Senator Gabbard was very quick to get it out, and that's SB 351. The hearing for that is tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and our chair has already submitted the request to testify to that. It is really our bill, since Senator Gabbard was kind enough to do what we asked him. And the bill is pretty simple. It does it recommends the 3 changes that we said we wanted. So that's a key bill on the list. A second key bill, one that we should talk about today, is HB 1318. That bill is a reflection of Representative Lowen's participation in the conversation Onana and I had with her and Senator Gabbard. She took our recommendations, but expanded it significantly. She told us she was going to do that, but not in great detail. And the bill, as a result, recommends that there be a shift of the Environmental Council and OEQC to the Office of Planning. And in the Office of Planning, there's a sustainability branch, which was set up last year, was approved and established last year, but not funded or staffed. So I don't know the status of that other than that it was legislatively approved. This bill is not scheduled for hearing. In fact, none of the bills other than SB 351 on the list, as far as I could tell as of this morning, are scheduled for hearings. Now, this, as you all know, changes instantly, but as of now, the only one that's getting a scheduled hearing is the Senator Gabbard's. So 1318 is, as I said, it sends us over to the Office of Planning. I don't have any idea. Keith, maybe you have heard from the Office of Planning. I don't know whether they are supportive of this or not supportive of it. I have no idea. I don't know how transferring department. Go, please.
First off, Robin, those 2 bills you mentioned, the office will be submitting testimony and support as well. So we're aligned.
Of 351 and what's
Yes.
the other one?
Yes.
Okay.
I did talk to the head of OP, Mary Alice, and she is supportive of the move.
That's good to know.
Oh, no, I think, did you get called by Lowen?
I did. I got a call from her. She had given me a heads up that there were some, what Robin said, that they were thinking of potentially moving it, but unfortunately we hadn't seen the bill go out before it went. So she did reach out just generally, and for, at least for my personal opinion, I didn't purport to speak on behalf of the council because it wasn't something we had spoken about yet. Was that, from our perspective, if it makes sense to move, the council and OEQC to another department, that's fine. We didn't have, any particular preference, so long as, our functions can basically, continue.
Keith, did you get any sense from Mary Alice, is that her name?
Mary Alice Evans.
From Mary Alice Evans, that there was any funding appropriated with that bill?
I don't believe so. In fact, I told Rep. Lowen the same thing, is that no matter where OQC and the council is restructured to the budget issue will follow the organization. So, and they're aware of that. But we'll see what happens, I guess.
Go ahead.
And this is just to give you some context too. There is a much larger restructuring that's being proposed with other departments. In fact, there is one bill that says to move all environmental protection, quality responsibilities all into a new Department of Environmental Protection.
That's HB 423. It's on the list, and thank you for pointing that out. That's also not an official carryover, but that was proposed last year as well.
Yeah. And there's other bills for restructuring involving other departments, not the council and QC, but other departments, non-DOH actually too. That's also being considered. What the rationale is, I don't know, but it's at the Gov's office. In fact, it's being fostered by the Gov's office. So they're looking at all these bills, either they are supporting or has come up early in the session that is being considered. Whether any or all of these bills will get finally enacted, that's anybody's guess.
Thank you for that, Keith.
I guess I just had a question for Keith. How does DOH feel about a potential move of OEQC and the council to OP or another department?
I've asked some of the other administration. I don't think anybody has any adverse or they're supportive of the suggested move.
While we're on 1318, I asked Mahina and Mary to read that bill, since it's a very long, pretty thorough bill, and I wonder if either of you have something to add about that particular bill, 1318. Mary, Mahina?
As much as it's long, it's really just, a lot of it's just housekeeping to clean up the fact that we become a division instead of an office. That's what a lot of the changes are. It really is just, in a nutshell, moving house.
Okay.
It's not got any money in it, so that and that's smart politics on someone's part, that because all bills that have money in them are going to get stuck in finance and or WHAM based on the budget. And so, but I would be curious to, the question that you asked Keith is, I'll be curious when the budget bills do come up, is to see if, all of this changing is for cost savings purposes. I'd like to see the cost savings be savings, and not fiefdom enhancers. So.
Thank you, Mary. Mahina, anything from your reading of the bill?
Nothing much. I agree. That's kind of how I read it too.
Okay.
I think
But it also has it has one little housekeeping thing about, it's taking out the language regarding appeals. Yeah.
Right. When Onana and I met with Senator Gabbard and Rep. Lowen, the three things we asked them, her bill addresses all three, one of them specifically, and the other two by eliminating them as part of, she doesn't state it, but since she's rewritten the enabling for the EC, by leaving those two out, she's acknowledged what the council asked us to ask her. So they both did what we asked. She just did, Rep. Lowen did a lot more than we asked. And then when you couple that with 420, HB 423, in terms of the future, that's a totally different track. That's a whole new Department of Environmental Protection. Again, I have no insight into where that's going. It's interesting that Rep. Lowen has her name on that bill as well. as one of 7 sponsors. And it's no secret, it's not confidential. In our conversation, Onana, you'll remember that she was saying as chair, she wasn't really open to major other changes in 343 or in bringing back some of the bills that had come up last year. So I don't know that this one's going to move or not. I obviously have no idea and haven't talked with her at all since our meeting. But she did say that to us. Keith?
Just another thing I heard from Mary Alice, and she's sort of surmising what might occur, but if it does go to OP, and you mentioned this sustainability group that sounds like hasn't been really formed or organized yet. But if she go to OP along with the council, her guess was that she would be designated as managing both groups. And in that sense, we may lose the director of OAQC position. I mean, right now it's kind of a moot point because there's no funding for it, but and you never know what these restructuring moves are. I mean, it could be totally different reasons from what you kind of assume it would be. But as far as the director position, there's a possibility we could lose that position and have either the OP director oversee one or both of those organizations. But yeah, we're just not sure what's going to happen at this point.
Well,
If anything.
if it's cost savings, they're going to have to take it from somewhere. So, and you can't cut zero from zero. So it's not going to be the EC's budget. That's for sure. Okay. I don't want to take up the whole meeting. We talked about a couple of the other bills. As I said, that there are no hearings scheduled for other than SB 351. That could change as we speak. I'll stay on top of it as much as I can. I know Keith will, of course, as well. And our intrepid reader of bills, Mary, will be right there with us. So rest easy. We'll keep you up to speed. I do have a protocol, sunshine question. I guess Kathy has just joined us, or Les or Nana can answer it. Am I allowed to update this chart and send it to Les to send to everybody as I find out, for example, if they schedule a hearing for one of the others, or to add another bill? Somebody just sent me one about an hour ago about an exemption for an EA. So am I allowed to update that without having to post it or whatever?
I would think that's fine. I defer to Kathy though. Yeah, if you're sending it to Les and Les is distributing it to the group.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with it because the legislature is a public forum and you're just informing us all or the council of something that's already made public. So I don't think there's a problem with that.
Okay, so I will, as this progresses, I will keep it as up to date as I can and share it with Les to share with all of you. So I hope you find it useful. And if you have any, if I missed any, please just, you can email me, you can do a one-on-one and I'll add to it.
May I ask a question? I just want to clarify what Kathy said. Can Robin just send it out to his committee or does he have to go through Les?
I would say let's continue to do it the way that we have, because if there's a risk, I think if it's coming from a council member that somebody might reply all, and then we have, an issue of serial discussions via email, which is not allowed under Sunshine. So I think if we're disseminating information, let's stick with our normal process of sending to Les, and Les can email to the group.
Yeah, that just means we won't get it on the weekend. I'm not being critical of Les. I'm just saying.
Understood.
And the legislature moves so fast that's my concern.
Sure. Kathy, I'll punt it to you because I'm not sure.
You could, why don't you send it to Les and myself? I look at my emails constantly, so I can disseminate it to you guys.
Thank you, Kathy.
I will do that. That's a great idea. Thank you for that, Kathy.
All right, Keith, go ahead.
Kathy, is it okay to send the office list to the council?
Office list, help me with that.
The OAQC list of bills we're tracking.
Oh, is that,
The one we went through yesterday.
is that much different than what I don't think that's much different. I don't know. I mean,
Probably not. I mean, it's going to be
I
a
think-
changing list, right? Like Robin said, he just got new
Yeah.
bills that he wasn't aware of. And I mean, bill submittal is not done yet, so there may be other bills coming in. But
oh, huh.
we've tracked.
Yeah,
bills.
send it to both, Les and myself, and one of us will get it to the disseminated.
And keep in mind, I'm sure the council's list is going to be changing. So the list that you get is dated, but there may be more bills added or subtracted.
I hope not added, because the deadline to submit bills has ended, and I've gotten all the bills that I need
Okay,
to review. So
that's
Is the
music to my
deadline-
ears.
Is the deadline passed? There,
it passed. It passed on the 27th.
Last week.
okay.
The
But still
problem-
possible that my list misses some because I just, I do a search, environmental council, OEQC, and so one thing I think, Keith, maybe what I'll do is just so that we're current, I'll send you the most current list I have at the end of this meeting. And then rather than have two lists circulating, just either update mine or incorporate mine into yours, and then we can just have one functioning list. I think that'd be easier for everybody. I'm more than willing to admit I missed a bunch. And so
To be honest,
heads.
we're not perfect either, so ours may be less than yours.
okay, well, I'll send it to you.
And the other thing is, we're trying to put down what position or action we're going to say in our testimony. And it could be different from the council, right? So I don't think so. The bills you listed were the same, but.
Can you testify on a bill that doesn't have a hearing scheduled?
No, but if there is a hearing.
Right.
There
Okay.
may be bills that the council has one position and the office may have, say, an opposite position. I'm just
Right.
surmising here, but.
Well-
It's probably better to keep a separate list for now.
Okay,
And we'll look at, your list, you look at ours, and, if there is bills missing, then yeah, we'll update both lists, I guess, or one list.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
sure.
They'll probably be very similar, but yeah, I think there may have even been a bill, I can't recall last year, where I think we took somewhat differing positions. Or yeah, it wasn't bad or opposing in any way, but I think maybe it was for different reasons. So yeah, that's
Different
considerable.
And
Right.
there may be some bills where it's more appropriate that the office replies to, and other bills the council should.
Sure.
We don't
So-
have to testify for all the bills that come through.
So here's my suggestion. Why don't you guys send me your list, and I have a list of bills that I'm tracking that deals with both of you. And as your counsel, I can send out a list to everyone on the bills that we're all tracking. Does that work for you guys?
That's fine. Les, you can send that updated list after yesterday, so
Oh,
you have that list, right?
I have that list, yes.
Oh, yeah, you have it. Is that the same list that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I've been telling, yes, I've been updating you all with the bills that have been assigned to me that deal with OEQC and Environmental Council. So I've been sending the numbers, the list to you guys, to Les. And so, And okay, and occasionally when I see something that I think is relevant to the Environmental Council, I've also been sending it out to, I think, Robin. So I can send you guys a list. I'll just send you my list of all bills that I have that I've been tracking for both the Environmental Council and OEQC, if that works for you guys.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you all for doing that.
Yeah, I think the more eyes, the better.
Yep.
So now that raises a question to me for us, all of us, and that is, we recommended that the legislative committee that Onana submit testimony on 351, which is our bill. So it would be kind of silly if we didn't. But my question to us is, do we want to talk specifically about whether we support or don't support some of these other really potentially game-changing bills that have, again, not been scheduled for a hearing because we won't be together again for another month? So do we want to discuss, for example, 1318, which is Lowen's bill to put us into this Office of Planning, or 423, which establishes a Department of Environmental Protection, or the one that we testified on last year about the hub? So just in general, does the council want to take positions now on some of these bills, even though they're not scheduled yet for hearings?
Yeah, I would say it's a good idea to do the exercise that OEQC is doing, which is at least knowing what position we're going to take. As you folks have seen on the agenda, I have recommended or put down an action item to authorize either myself or Robin to submit testimony, understanding that we only meet once a month and some of these bills may get scheduled before our next meeting. So obviously we can't submit testimony without knowing how the council, what position the council wants to take. So at least for me, I think it would be helpful that I think we do have some time and we can go through that now if folks are willing to do it. And then if at the, at the end of this, I will ask that we do get that to that action item and that allows us to go ahead and submit testimony. And, for example, today, we had to get testimony in before the meeting today. That was on a bill that we had already been approved, that we use the same message that we did in our letter to Senator Gabbard and Rep. Lowen. So we submitted that information for tomorrow's hearing.
Well, then I would suggest we discuss at the very least HB 1318, which moves us and OEQC over to Office of Planning, and HB 423, which recommends a Department of Environmental Protection. At the very least, those two I think we should talk about. There are others that are very specific about the way EAs and EISs function and what's part of them and what's not. Some of you may want to talk about, but I think as a council, we really should, given what Onana just said, talk about 1318 and 423. That's just my thought.
Thanks, Robin. Keith, did you have your hand up? You're on mute. Oh, Keith, you're on mute.
I agree with what Robin said. In addition to that, I would also propose that we look at some bills that actually Kathy pointed out that's part of the governor's package. So either the council doesn't testify or testify in support. It was kind of news to us at OEQC that it was part of the governor's package. And then some that the office is opposing. Whether council chooses to testify or not, that's up to you. But there's, I think, a couple of them that so far we're opposing.
Thanks, Keith. If everybody's okay with it, I say let's start just running through the different bills that both you and Robin have mentioned. Because I think for a lot of us, I haven't had time to go through all of them that are on this list yet. So I will definitely need background from you folks before we can make a decision on, what position we'd essentially like to take. Robin, you're on mute now. Sorry. Oh, still on mute, Robin.
I'd suggest that I learn how to use this thing. I'd suggest that we start with HB 1318. That's the one that I think has, in my opinion, based on our conversation with the senator and the rep, the most legs, if you will. So I just as a place to start, I would suggest we do that one.
Okay, I'll let you
Kathy
kind
has a comment.
oh, go ahead, Keith.
No, I just wanted to add to your list, if you guys wanted to, House Bill 1350. And that is environmental justice mapping and data collection. And it requires the Environmental Council in consultation with the Department of Health, Land and Natural Resources and others to come up with environmental justice mapping.
Okay.
There are appropriations with that bill?
No, yeah, that was my note. There's no appropriations and there are no bodies added to this bill.
And when we had a bill similar to this last year, we pointed out that we already have a lot of information available on OEQC website as well as DLNR. And so I don't see this bill as a threat because there's no money attached to it, and we can already prove that much of this need is being met already.
Great, thanks, Kathy and Mary. So I think we'll circle back to that. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
Just a thought, in more the interest of time, I don't know how long you have for this meeting and other items you want to discuss, but in the interest of time, if the council can designate yourself, Onana, and Robin, and whoever else, that we can set aside a separate discussion, go bill by bill, and see what the impact would be for both the council and the office. And then whoever you designate as representing council, I don't know what mechanism you can use to reach back to the rest of the council members. The
Yeah,
other alternative is everybody wants to go through it, we're willing to do it.
right. Well, you know, I think for some of these matters, it's important that we do vote on it if we're taking a council position, but I do, I see your point and you're right. So we had this meeting until 2:30. I know that two members have reached out and have to leave around 2:45, 2:50 today. So another thing that we can do is, you know, call a special meeting, let's say next week, specifically to go over legislation as a part of this group. I don't want to push it to March because I fear that some of these bills will actually get scheduled for hearing by that time. But how do you folks feel about, you know, do you think number one, do you think 1 hour would be sufficient to go through all of these bills, or do we need an hour and a half? And if that's the case, can we do a special meeting with the full council, you know, next week to give people time at least to read through all of the bills in their entirety, so that once we don't have to, you know, rely on Robin and the rest of the legislative committee and Keith to actually educate us on the bills. Does that seem like something that would work for folks?
I think that's a good idea. I think two things about time. I think an hour would not be sufficient given the number of bills. Even if there's just 5 or 6 that we say are the most important to talk about. Some of them, I mean, they're 2 of them right off the bat are substantive changes in OEQC and EC. So A, I would suggest we do it, you know, for more than an hour. And B, I would suggest that we set a time limit per bill, because otherwise we'll just keep going. I mean, if we were to say, I don't know, I'm just being arbitrary, an hour and a half and 15 minutes for each bill, and then there's a vote, as long as we've all had a chance to read it, otherwise we'll go on forever.
Okay. So, okay, that's a good point. Thank you, Robin. Keith, go ahead.
And just as a measure, I went through with Les and Tom and Kathy yesterday. I think it took over 2 hours.
Over
And
2
they
hours.
did the research up front.
Okay.
So, you know, we just had to discuss it more like Robin says, but we did change some of the positions that you know, whoever read and did the research was
Sure.
recommending.
Okay, so I would, what about 2.5?
It's a while.
Yeah, no, it completely makes sense. There's a lot of bills. I'm hesitant to schedule another 3-hour meeting for folks just because maybe we schedule it for 3 hours, but let's aim to get it done in 2.5. I know everybody in this group's really busy. So today's Tuesday. If I got an agenda out tomorrow for this special meeting, which I can put together quickly, that would enable us to have a meeting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the earliest, I think next Thursday or Friday, which is the 11th and 12th. Would that work for people? And we can be flexible on time. We could do it early in the morning. No, Mary's saying no. And I'm sorry, I know for folks that this is taking another day in your month, and people are really busy. If somebody can't meet, I mean, we do need quorum, but I agree. I think, we're going to lose a bunch of folks in about 30 minutes.
Is there a way, Onana, to move up the speed with which we do that? I'm concerned that this stuff at the ledge is happening so quickly these days. And
Yeah.
do we have to have, is that sunshine that we have to post this? Is that why it can't happen until Thursday or Friday?
Yeah, if we're having the full council meeting, right, which, I mean, unless the council is gonna, right now what we have on the agenda is an action item that would allow me and Robin to submit testimony on behalf of the council. I don't know if folks are comfortable with us making a decision on what position it is we take for them. I would assume no, and that's the conversation we need to have, right, is what position everybody could be taking. So because of sunshine, I do think we would need to vote as a full council on what position we're going to take on the bills. And so if I get an agenda out, I mean, I could try to get one out today before 4 p.m. if Les is able to post it, but that still only lets us have a meeting at earliest next week, Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday is the earliest we can have an actual sunshine meeting if we get an agenda out. That was your question, right? You wanted to have something sooner than that. Yeah. And I don't think we can. I think if it's that many bills, to allow everybody to actually go through all of the information and come to this meeting, having read all of the bills, being prepared, I think it would be tough. So yeah, I would say, okay, sorry, Keith and then Mary.
Yeah, I agree with Robin that, even though there's no hearing set right now, it could come in a fury next week even.
Okay.
We just don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I'm personally, I think we pretty much will have agreement on most of the bills. There may be a few that, one member may disagree. There's also when they testify, they can add their own personal testimony too, as a minority opinion, if you will.
Right.
It's not under council letterhead, but they can always submit a separate disagreement or, their own viewpoint.
Right. And I think last year there were certain items that came up that we didn't have a meeting soon enough. So folks did submit testimony in their individual capacity, and nothing, of course, prevents that.
Right.
Okay. Mary, you had something to say?
I just wanted to point out the legislative calendar. The 11th of February is First Cross. And then the 19th is First Lateral. So from my experience, if a bill is super important to a legislator, they're going to have a hearing before First Cross. So they're going to have a hearing before we meet on all of these bills.
Could we do both? Mary, that's helpful. How about if we did this? How about if we had a special meeting as soon as it's logistically and sunshinely possible, but also authorized Onana and I, if something comes up prior to that, to testify on the council's behalf. And what we would do is try and reach out to you in some way, if there was any sense of controversy to it. But it's going to happen too fast.
Personally, I don't.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
I don't need to meet. I've read all these bills. I don't see anything controversial. I think you're being very kind and generous, Robin, in trying to include everyone's feelings. But this is going to happen no matter what we say. And so I think I think the most important thing is for us to be at the table, so we're not on the menu. And that Onana and Robin be given the authority to go do their jobs. For us to have another meeting to do essentially committee work, which your committee already did for an hour this morning, is, I'll make time, but I'm just concerned about our inefficiency that I feel we're operating under.
No, that's helpful. Well, let me pose this question then. Based on the committee's review, because you folks did spend a lot of time on this and I appreciate that. Do you folks have a recommendation on how the council should testify on these bills? Because maybe that kind of gets rid of the need to have the meeting for next week if you already have a recommendation.
We stopped short of making the recommendation because Robin wanted to present them to you today.
Understood. Okay, so Kathy, maybe you can jump in, but I feel stuck because I don't want to submit any testimony on saying that it's on behalf of the council if it's not in fact on behalf of the council.
So is it, there's nothing to prevent a council member to testify on behalf of themselves as a, right? I mean, there's nothing to prevent them. So if you guys can't meet, then if a bill is here, if anyone feels strong enough about a particular bill, they can testify on their own. The other thing is, so I was looking to see how many bills have triple referrals. Some of the bills that you guys that are impacting the environmental impact statements or could impact the environmental council has been assigned 3 committees. So they have to be in the second committee before February 11th. And a lot of these have not even been given one hearing. So there's a bill relating to the Department of Environmental Protection, which has touches and concerns both OEQC and Environmental Council. And it has 3 committees, but one committee is 3 committees combined to make one committee. So, some of these bills just may not get a hearing.
Okay, thanks. So sorry, we're gonna lose folks at about 2:45, so a couple of folks at 2:45. So this is what I'll propose because I think this is the only realistic thing we can do. I'm gonna get an agenda out. Hopefully, we'll try for today, depending on time, but likely tomorrow. So that means the earliest we can meet is Thursday. I propose that we meet on Thursday, everybody having read the bill, so we can go do a quick run through at least. And my preference is to submit testimony as a united council. I think that has more credibility, especially for bills particularly affecting the council. In the meantime, if anything comes up between now and a proposed meeting on February 11th, individuals are welcome to testify in their individual capacity, so we can at least get some council representation as individuals who happen to be members on the council. I think that's really the only path we can do to move forward. Does that seem reasonable to folks? Okay, and so I know one person chatted to me that they are available Thursday and Friday of next week. I think let's do it on Thursday if we can. The earlier, the better.
I can do Thursday after 11 a.m.
Okay,
anytime.
That's fine with me. I would propose 2 hours. Does that work for folks if we did Thursday? Mary, is 11 o'clock okay, or 11:30?
11's fine.
11? Okay, 11 to
I'll be done by 10:30, so that's why I said 11.
11, perfect, thank you. Okay, so I'm thinking Thursday, 11 to, let's say 1:30, it'll give us 2.5 hours. But hopefully it doesn't, okay. I know some folks can't make it, but if we can at least get quorum. Keith?
I probably can't make those times. I can probably do it in the afternoon,
Okay,
but we have COVID meetings in the morning and then
yeah,
probably a cabinet meeting right after.
okay. What time are you available Thursday afternoon?
I would say probably anytime after lunch.
Okay. So what if we did a 1 to 3 meeting instead? Okay. Or is that too early? You want to do 1:30, Keith?
That's fine.
Okay. Sorry, 1 or 1:30, okay with you?
Let's go 1:30.
1:30, okay. 1:30, so 1:30, 2.5, that's 4 o'clock. Okay. So hopefully we can at least get a quorum for that. I think one person said they won't be able to make it so far. But so I'm gonna say Thursday, February 11th from 1:30 to 4 o'clock. Everybody please pull the bills and read them prior to the meeting on Thursday so that we can discuss them. And I think that's that. So I'll get an agenda for that for next Thursday. And thank you everybody for being flexible. Okay, so the only thing I think we have left for annual report committee then is the action item. And I guess I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve myself and Robin to work with legislators and submit testimony on behalf of the council. And obviously this is going to be after the council takes position on legislation.
Second,
Thanks, Mary. All right, do we need any further discussion on this item? No? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Okay. Do we have any opposed? Okay. Makaala is opposed, correct? Okay. And any abstentions? Okay. The motion carries. Thank you, folks. All right. Anything else from the legislative committee at this time? Okay. Thank you folks very much for working on that. Okay, Mahina, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Okay, thanks, Onana. So presenting on behalf of the Rules Committee, we had a really good discussion this morning about making amendments to the EC's Rules of Practice and Procedure, which is Hawaii Administrative Rules Chapter 201, and how we might go about that. So we voted unanimously to move ahead with amending Chapter 201, agreeing that the most kind of immediate need is our process for appeals. So we talked about what we would need to do depending on whether or not any of these bills pass, and how we would want to amend our rules either way. So I think that's kind of it in terms of a summary. I think we might just need a vote to approve our moving forward with amending the rules.
Does anybody have any questions? So yeah, this is a recommendation coming out of committee. I don't think we don't need a second for that then.
I have a question. I'm sorry. Mahina, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking us to approve. Are you recommending specific changes to the appeals process or?
Not yet. We are just kind of giving us the go ahead to move forward with discussing, and we talked about whether or not we might do a PIG or whether we can just do it in committee, because right now we're just talking about taking on the appeals process, so it might be quicker. I mean, definitely quicker than the process before. And we might be able just to do it in-house, I guess you could say. Does anybody else from the committee have any mana'o to share about what we discussed? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what we're proposing from the Rules Committee is an action to start the rulemaking process. And I guess really just reviewing what needs to be done. I think we're all in agreement, and even prior to last year's appeal, that we need to take a look at our procedural rules. And I know this was something that when Scott was here, he had mentioned it was on his radar to update HR 11-201, which is our procedural rules. But at the time, with the undertaking for 11-200, the 343 rules, it was too much at one time. So taking a look at it with a fresh eyes, we know with the legislation that's going through, or that may or may not go through, we're going to want to take a look at our appeals process, which right now under 11-201 requires that any appeals to the council be held as a Chapter 91 contested case hearing. Having been through that process, I think many of us can say, you know, maybe that's not the right process for appeals coming to the council in any event. So if legislation, for example, Senator Gabbard's bill does pass, we would have to amend the rules to essentially gut that section of the rules anyway, because we would no longer have authority for appeals. But even if the bill doesn't pass, again, we've already identified a need that our process, we need to take a look at our process, and that a full-blown contested case is probably not something we want to do. Of course, we can talk about that in more detail and figure out what would that process look like if appeals still stay with the council. So this action would allow the Rules Committee to move forward with starting to take a look at what rules we would amend. And in this case, because we do have, you know, potential legislation affecting us, maybe we have to present kind of two rules packages in a sense of if this, then A, if this, then B, kind of a situation. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? All right, folks, we'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor of approving the Rules Committee to move forward with beginning the rulemaking process for HER 11-201, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Any opposed? All right, and any abstentions?
Okay.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, anything else from the Rules Committee, Mahina?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll
All
turn
right,
my
I'll
phone
move
off.
on to the... Hey, Mike, maybe you want to go on mute. Thank you. I'll go ahead and pass it on to Mary for INO. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we had a great meeting this morning. I really want to thank my committee for their zeal to participate and be creative. And we were all over the place. We had a little technical issue, got that all figured out. And then we just came together and went, whew. I've already typed everything up, so I could even put it on share screen if you'd like. But I didn't want to lose anything that we did this morning. I really need to give all the credit to Dawn. She had a great idea that enabled us to focus, and we ran down that road breakneck speed. Thank you, Dawn. Bravo. And Dawn's brilliant idea was to look at our annual report, use the annual report as a tool. Thank you very much, Annual Report Committee. So we looked at what is, depending on how you're paginating when you print this out, it's page 8 of the annual report, and it has the top environmental ideas, priorities identified for 21 to build a better future. We then took that, we broke that into some categories, if you will. So we ended up with 6 forums. Oh man, my phone's gonna ring. I'm sorry, I can't make that not make noise. Climate change, sea level rise, shoreline protection and erosion prevention would be one of them. Watershed protection and better stormwater would be the second one. Improved transportation modes would be a third. Waste reduction and improved waste disposal, a fourth. Reduce water and energy use, a fifth. And then we left growth management and destination and growth management to the last, with the idea that once we had all these other forums under our belt, maybe we'd have a better idea of where we could constructively go with that. And I left an important idea out at the very beginning. We made all of these groupings with the idea, and we came up with panelists and are going to request some panelists of you with the idea of keeping 343 in mind, that that's what our job is 343, not just to run around and have chit chat talks. That's what we did in that regard. And that's why we were a little bit weak on what to do about growth management. The idea we have initially, and we're totally open, and I don't know, I know you're trying to get this meeting wrapped up, but I was hoping to have maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And so maybe I get to tag on to the end of next week's meeting if we don't get to finish this today. The Sam Limo from Coastal Office at DLNR and Chip Fletcher from UH, they're kind of the sea level rise kings. I attended a presentation they did on Friday, and it would be extremely applicable and transferable to this use. We wanted to add Justine from the Office of Planning, and then possibly people from the Office of Planning from both Maui and Honolulu, because they're the ones predominantly dealing with losing their beaches. But we are open to other panelists from our members here on the council. Watershed and Better Stormwater, we only came up with Emma Yoon from DLNR. We're going to invite someone from Federal Forestry, maybe USDA or NOAA. We weren't sure from the counties if there's somebody really with watershed, so we're looking to you all for guidance. The the transportation one, we're going to feature this more like a hot topic forum, because we want to help with the release of rules, do a rules update for the Vision Zero program that's going on to reduce and eliminate traffic fatalities. And that we thought we might include something about the bike share programs at that time. Of course, Roy is the king of all wastewater waste reduction. And so he's working on the panelists for that. And we can certainly take your ideas. We're going to reach out to Scott Glenn for ideas of course, for him to be a panelist on energy, and then see and ask for who else he'd like to have on the panel with him. We're going to have this be, we want these to follow a panel format to make it visually interesting for the observers. We want to have them, all speakers will have to use a PowerPoint to guide their talk so that it's visually interesting, as well as the resource information is easier to capture. We're thinking of having the same event on the event twice on a day, once at lunchtime and once in the evening. Repeat that same one that same evening. That they be recorded as we've done in the past, so they can be linked on DLNR and OEQC websites. We're going to reach out to Dan Dennison. Maka'ala, is that the right person he was the one that helped you with the event, with the forums we did in the past? Is that correct?
He has a comms team, but he's a good contact. He's not the ultimate authority, but he's a good contact.
Okay, thank you. And then my last point is that we would probably do this via Zoom hosting. We're going to look at Hop In and a couple other things. Mathina gave us a great tip that they used in a seminar that she did for, they used Google Docs amongst themselves as the administrators of the event to manage the chat questions, so that they didn't just, we want to have people have the opportunity to ask questions, but sometimes they need to be, some questions need to be blended together or not repeated or whatever. You guys all know what I'm talking about. And that concludes my report of today. And we don't have any action item to bring to you. We are going to have an intermediary meeting before our March meeting. We're going to meet again on February 16th to update where we are at this point. And then we'll be prepared to come to you on the March 3rd meeting with a motion for approval to hold our first forum mid-March. The end.
Okay, that's a lot. And Mary, I didn't want you to have to rush. The only reason I was rushing is because we're losing 2 people. So I wanted to get any action items out. We actually do have this meeting scheduled till 3:30. We have a couple members that need to leave early. So from what I'm hearing for you, so you don't need the action item that we had as the 3rd bullet point today.
I don't think that we're properly prepared unless we'll come back to you with exact participants and an agenda that will be used in the March forum at our March 2nd meeting.
So, and then your February 16th meeting, you folks will work with Les to get your agenda out.
Yeah, we've already talked with Les about that.
Perfect. Okay, well, I mean, I think this is a great idea. So thank you folks for looking at that on your report. Go ahead, Maka'ala.
Thank you. The only thing I would suggest is that on watersheds, you named a bunch of agencies who I know do a lot of work, but there are several community-based, not just mine, there are several community-based organizations that utilize all those agencies in one effort.
Okay,
And that would give you a more comprehensive look at
okay.
some of the work that's being done in watersheds. So
Could I
don't
ask
just,
you, could you
just
email that
asking
to me?
agencies won't get you there.
Could you email that, those agencies to me, or those organizations to me, please, Mark Owl?
I'll email you mine.
Thank you. And that's what we're truly looking. We do not want this to be a closed door in any way. This is just the thinking that we came up with this morning. And we extremely respect and, the knowledge base that all of you have. So anyone that you think we should have on a certain subject, or if there's a subject a way that we're talking about presenting this, that you think we should go in a different direction, we respect your guidance. Thank you.
I was able to listen to a Zoom conversation that Civil Beat hosted between Scott Glenn and Jeff Michelina on
Oh.
energy. And it was really, really very good. It was
That was a great idea.
it was well done. And Scott raised a number of issues towards the end about community involvement and at what stage do you have community involvement in energy placement issues, thinking about Kahuku and Waianae and Lanai and stuff. So that was one of your examples, and I thought that worked really well. They both had some slides, but they both incredibly knowledgeable and reflected, I think, interests that would be appealing for us. So nice
Okay.
work, all of you guys on INO. Good idea.
We also didn't, we did discuss we're still trying to get to do some kind of a Zoom education forum or something on how people can participate in public hearings, and particularly the cultural impact work. And so I've reached out to the legislative office of, I never can say their name right, people on the fourth floor. And so we're going to see if there's something we can do with in that arena, because we don't have the skill set to do it. We were talking to the law school about it, and they're super busy, so they haven't been able to respond to us so we can go forward with it. So we're just kind of working on plan B from that regard. So we didn't want you to think we dropped that ball. We're still bouncing it. And that is truly everything I have written down.
Well, that's a lot. Good work, INO. Does anybody have questions or comments on the INO update? All right, so we'll look forward to hearing from you folks again at the March meeting.
Thank you.
And it'll be nice to have some forums and stuff and get back to some kind of normalcy, even though we're still on Zoom this year. So,
well, we think we can probably create more of them than just quarterly like we did before, because while we have this digital advantage. So we're gonna we may not. Well, I'm not even going to say what the goal is. You'll find out when we find out what we can accomplish.
go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, actually, it's good even if we go back to live presentation, it's still good to have the Zoom, because then you can have people from our islands participate really easily. So that's something to think about.
Absolutely. I think every business, every agency entity in the world is thinking that way, Roy. That's been one of the blessings of the pandemic.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to, this kind of brings it up now and back to Ledge, but I know there was the OIP bill, right? Which is to continue allowing virtual meetings. Is anybody tracking that? Maybe that's one we can, just add as a track. I think that'll be fairly non-controversial. But just so we have it on our radar, so we know what's happening with it. If you don't mind adding that to our list. All right, thank you. All right, and thank you, Mary, for the update. Okay, Robin, so it's back to you for the PIG update.
Yeah, we have not been as productive as Mary's group, but we've been good. we've had a number of discussions, and Roy had a really good idea, which we referenced before, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that today. Roy's idea was to, in terms of what should be the future role of the Environmental Council, obviously with all this legislation pending or being introduced, it's so much up in the air. It's kind of like Mahina talking about, the rules, and if the bills pass, we won't need to change how we deal with appeals, but if it doesn't pass, we do. And so there's so much up in the air. Roy's simple suggestion was pretty basic, and it was to ask two questions to the community, to the environmental community at large. And so the two things I wanted to ask the group to think about and talk about today are: A, what is your reaction to the two questions that are posed in the agenda? You can see them there. And then B, to whom should they be sent? Roy's already put together a list of some key departments and individuals. We have the list of agencies to whom we sent the survey. There's an old environmental legislative network that the Conservation Council in Hawaii is revising. So that's a lot of nonprofits, and you guys have organizations. So I wanted to ask you first to think about those two questions, and then second to talk a little bit about how we would send it out. And the purpose again of this is to kick off the strategic planning process by having community input in it. So that's where we are.
Great, thanks, Robin. Any comments? So the two questions, right, that you folks are proposing are actually in the agenda.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one thing I should add. Clearly, with that kind of expansive list we envision putting together, there would be an introduction to these two questions. They're not just going to go out and say, what should the Environmental Council do and be, because many people just don't know about it. So there would be my sense would be that there would be an introduction to the role of the EC to date and why we're doing this and how we would value their opinion. I have volunteered to hire Grove Insight again, and I couldn't ask them to do it for free again, but they've agreed that they will do this for us. I'll make a donation to them, to the young man who's going to do the work for us. So we can send it out to a broad array, and they'll do the analysis of it for us, which is great. So your thoughts on the two questions?
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, if everybody can take a look at the second bullet point under item number 9, there are two questions, little I and little double I. And these, what my understanding are the proposed questions that would be a part of that survey. Correct, Robin?
Right. There'd be an introduction, why we're doing this, what's the EC. Probably have to spend some time briefly articulating the status of things. But these are the two questions we'd want to ask to a variety of individuals, organizations, departments. So.
Yeah, I don't have any comments on the questions, and I think that makes sense with, you folks adding an introduction and an explanation of, why we're seeking this information.
I'm sorry, I'll shut up after this, but remember that one of the things we wanted to do when we first talked about doing strategic planning was doing it beyond just those of us who are here. That getting community input was critical, especially in the early stages of this. And we wanted to make it a very simple, like the annual report, a very simple way of having people put their input in. So it would be a survey that would allow for a narrative accompaniment. Somebody wanted to just say, what they thought, they could do that.
Does anybody else have anything to add from the PIG or questions about the proposed survey? So I guess what's the next step for the pig then?
Yeah, the next step would be for each of you, I would ask each of you to, how would we do this? To think about to whom you'd like to see this go out. Eventually, we're going to have Les send it out to everybody. I'll have the survey folks design it in a way as they did the annual report. But with Roy's list and the Environmental Legislative Network list, for the rest of you, if you have suggestions, it would be really wonderful if you'd let us know, let me know through Les, to whom you think this should go.
We should, folks should try and provide the contact and email to make it easy.
Yeah, that would be helpful if you could provide the email, because otherwise I'd have to call and try to, get the email address for somebody, and some of the people, I guess they're reluctant to give that out. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't worry about duplication. Les and I will go through that, or Les can do it as he's putting the email together. But yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, please take a minute and send me or Les your suggested contacts with emails.
So Robin, is this just agencies, or you folks are looking to broader community groups, private sector folks, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, Roy suggested a list of scientists and engineers, for example. I thought of nonprofit organizations. We have a list of government agencies from the annual report list. So I think, given that someone else is going to do the analysis, I think we are making it as broad as we can.
And I think the list is useful for other purposes, for inviting people to forums and so on. So it might be a multi-purpose list in the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you folks go ahead and set a deadline for everybody? Because I think people work best when they have an absolute deadline to send you things.
Okay. Well, let's see. Today is the 2nd. How about next week, Friday, the 12th? That good?
Yep, that's reasonable. Thank you. And so we're going to go with our normal process of sending it to Les, and Les will forward the contacts to you, or yeah, I think we'll just stick with that normal process.
Okay.
Les, is that okay? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
And the list I had prepared, I had another column just describing what type of group it was, like municipal agency or environmental group or scientific, engineering, so on. So that way you can kind of sort them and see all the different types of folks we have. Well, that's what I did, but just for sorting purpose, if anything.
No, that makes sense. Thank you, Roy.
I'll send Les an email to distribute to everybody, requesting specifically what we're asking for, so that people who aren't on this meeting will also get it as well. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Anything else from the PIG?
No.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, folks. So we have, our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, well, actually, no. Our next meeting is going to be next Thursday, February 11th. Again, we're going to shoot for 1:30 to 4 p.m. I'm going to put together the agenda. Robin, do you think later tonight you could send the updated list, and maybe even Kathy, because we're going to attach those list of bills to the agenda so that folks know what they need to review prior to that meeting on Thursday?
I'm going to send my list to Keith and Kathy right after this meeting.
Okay. Yeah, and I think looking at the time, it's probably realistic. We get the agenda posted tomorrow. So if no later to less than, tomorrow morning, let's say, is 10 a.m. work to get an updated list? Possibly. Well, I guess the latest, maybe noon could actually be the latest, because Les, you just need to post by 4 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
we want to make sure that we don't limit ourselves to discussing only those bills, though.
Yes, we can, and any intervening legislation that comes up. Now, for sunshine purposes, I guess that's a little,
We
mean,
could just, any bill introduced in the state legislature.
yeah,
'Cause
okay.
it's public record.
Yeah, that's public record. So I'll put that, but I do want to see the list of specifically
Oh, yeah, I
the ones
agree.
we've identified so far.
Yeah.
Okay,
I agree. I just don't want to limit us.
no, that's a good idea. Thank you. All right. Okay, public forum. I know we do have a member of the public, and you have a right to comment on anything on the agenda. I just want to make sure, Pani, you don't have anything to add. And if you do, jump in.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, just listening in. Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, folks. Anything else for today? No? Okay, well, thank you folks for all of your hard work. Everybody is doing a lot. I really appreciate it. Again, thanks everybody for working on the annual report. We're glad to get that out. So I'll go ahead and work with Les to finalize that, and we can distribute that accordingly. And we'll see you all next Thursday at 1:30. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.